twice. And I'm going to tell you, next time you're going to set up down this way, not in front of this.
What if California's streets were overflowing with the homeless? A scene no one ever thought possible, yet now it lingers in the minds of millions. As the homeless population rises each day, the question isn't whether we can help, but how long until this pain can no longer be ignored. With every new sunrise, the California dream fades further from reach. Can we let the very emblem of opportunity collapse beneath the weight of apathy and neglect? One, the present shadow, California's homelessness exposed. To understand the magnitude of what lies ahead, we must first acknowledge the grim truth already consuming California. By 2025, nearly 182,000 people across the state, more than 1 in 5 of all homeless in America, are living without shelter. This 6% rise from the previous year isn't just data, it's a stark reflection of lives overturned, from displaced tech workers in Silicon Valley to veterans forgotten in San Diego. The origins of this disaster stem from a volatile mix of failed policies and unchecked ambition, and it's time to confront them directly.
I'm saying, these people at work, they can't move their stuff, so you're going to take their stuff and throw it away.
I didn't say that.
Yes, you just did. And you're going to arrest me? You're going to arrest me for not going to some fucking place?
I'm letting you talk, so I'm going to let you finish.
I'm asking you, you're going to arrest me for going to some place for a misdemeanor.
Put it down.
For nothing. Because I'm homeless? That right there should be against the law.
One of the leading forces behind this crisis is the skyrocketing cost of housing. With the median home price in California hovering around $800,000, owning a home has become unattainable for most. At the same time, wages remain flat while inflation continues to tighten the financial noose around families. The opioid epidemic, especially fentanyl, adds another devastating blow. 30% of California's homeless population is trapped in the deadly cycle of addiction. People aren't just drifting aimlessly, they're caught in destructive loops of substance abuse that overwhelm an already burdened social safety system. In Los Angeles, Skid Row shelters over 40,000 people living in tents and improvised dwellings, a stark emblem of an escalating catastrophe. Yet the problem spreads far beyond LA. Across the state, the cracks in the system are undeniable. In San Bernardino, Jasmine, a 40-year-old woman who has lived homeless for over 8 years, recounts how the system abandoned her and countless others. She speaks of broken promises for temporary housing and a route to stability, only to end up back on the streets with no real solutions offered. Jasmine highlights the grim fact that despite millions allocated in aid, much of the funding never reaches those most in need. Administrative red tape, including fees and complex procedures, traps many in a cycle they can't escape.
And I can honestly say that I believe that the people that are responsible for the homeless funding have been misappropriating the funding for years, and nobody's ever blown the whistle because nobody really cares to stand up for this city.
Mental health issues are another silent crisis worsening the situation. Roughly 25% of the homeless population suffers from untreated mental illness, and with clinics overloaded, many go without essential care. Racial disparities in homelessness are equally striking. Black Californians, just 6% of the population, account for nearly 40% of the homeless. This imbalance stems from a long legacy of redlining, incarceration, and systemic inequities that persist to this day. California's homelessness emergency is more than a challenge. It's a glaring mirror of a fractured system. Even as billions flow into cleanup efforts, cities like San Francisco show almost no progress. The sidewalks remain crowded, shelters are beyond capacity, and policies continue to prioritize corporations over citizens. With everything at stake, the pressing question is, how much longer can California's foundation stand before the entire system collapses beneath its own weight? Two, the unfolding storm, a hypothetical fall into urban chaos. Imagine California, already burdened by the weight of its homelessness crisis, facing the ultimate storm. A second major recession, fueled by unchecked housing inflation rising 50% and worsened by supply chain breakdowns and climate-driven migration from wildfire zones, could push the crisis past its limits. Another 200,000 people, families forced out, gig workers with no digital safety net, would spill onto the streets, expanding the homeless population to 400,000. Homelessness in California would cease to be a side issue. It would reshape the state entirely, turning once famous streets into desperate battlegrounds. Picture this transformation. Hollywood Boulevard, once sparkling with celebrity glamour, now swallowed by endless tents, blue tarps whipping in the wind. The air would be thick with the odor of rotting waste and smoke from barrel fires, leaving tourists unable to recognize what they see. What was once a beacon of ambition and hope would turn into a marketplace of survival. Cardboard stalls would rise, selling whatever could be salvaged, as displaced residents huddled together, bartering for food under the relentless California heat. At first, there would be a wave of compassion, churches opening doors, volunteers offering meals and water. Yet, as days pass, tension mounts. Prime spots for refuge, shaded areas under highways or grassy corners in parks turn into contested territories. Brawls replace cooperation, and small-time theft becomes rampant. Police forces, stretched far too thin to provide real order, make matters worse by clearing camps without offering true alternatives. As desperation deepens, anger brews and outbreaks of violence begin to surface. Within weeks, the disaster becomes undeniable. Businesses, especially restaurants in areas like San Francisco's Mission District, close their doors, unable to endure looting and property damage. Tourism, a $140 billion pillar of California's economy, collapses almost overnight. Who would come to vacation amid such turmoil? The middle class, consumed by fear, retreats into gated enclaves guarded by private security, widening the chasm between the wealthy and the poor. And as danger spreads across the streets, the toll on human lives climbs. The elderly perish from exposure, the young become radicalized, and communities unravel piece by piece. This forecast represents a worst-case outcome, but it's not unfounded. It draws from ongoing patterns, magnified by lessons from cities like Detroit that have faced similar decline. In California, this downfall would be intensified by the sharp divide between immense wealth and rising poverty. Still, even in this dark projection, signs of endurance would appear. The displaced would organize grassroots networks, using mutual aid apps to share scarce supplies. But despite these sparks of hope, the deeper problem persists, a broken structure where the illusion of progress quickly fades when fairness is ignored. As we reflect on this imagined descent, the question remains, how long can we overlook the fractures in our foundation before everything gives way? What actions must we take now to stop this nightmare from becoming our tomorrow? Three, the fractured aftermath, jagged edges of collapse. From the brink of this growing catastrophe, repercussions would spread like cracks through every artery of California's existence, a haunting reflection of the societal fractures exposed in documentaries on the homeless in America. These are not distant tales. They're the bitter fruits of inequality planted long ago, now fully blossomed across our streets. Socially, the breakdown would cut fast and deep, transforming public sanctuaries into scarred battlegrounds. Parks once echoing with laughter, sidewalks built for leisure, benches for brief repose, these would harden into zones of survival, where every shaded corner ignites struggles over water or space. Families clinging to the edge would face heartbreaking choices. A parent's warmth exchanged for a child's single meal, innocence bartered to the cold night. The elderly, frail against the ocean chill, would fade quietly, their stories swallowed by fog and forgotten winds. Psychological strain, already gripping a quarter of the displaced, would spiral unchecked, silent despair erupting into screams that shatter uneasy calm. Fearful residents might form night watches, not out of cruelty but instinct, though such walls would only deepen the divide between homes and havens. In a nation built upon the forge of equality, how long until these cracks widen into chasms that consume our shared humanity? Economically, the blow lands with brutal precision, shattering the illusion of perpetual prosperity. Tourism's $140 billion heartbeat, drawing wanderers to golden beaches and starlit boulevards, would falter as disgust replaces wonder. Nob Hill's lavish hotels would stand hollow, their marble corridors echoing with unfilled reservations. Mission District eateries would shudder at dusk, their patios overtaken by tinted camps. Investors would scatter like dust before a storm, property values bleeding red as neighborhoods decay into empty shells. Jobs vanish in sequence, servers adrift from barren counters, builders idle before halted cranes, each loss feeding the swelling tide. Los Angeles, already draining billions to combat blight, would hemorrhage tenfold, stripping schools and infrastructure to fund temporary walls. The irony burns, a land that minted wealth in microchips and movie reels, now impoverished by its own neglected ruins. Health and environment would twist together in a grim choreography of decay, both body and land succumbing to the spread of neglect. Hospitals, makeshift triage for the abandoned, would crumble under waves of illness. Tuberculosis festering in encampments, hepatitis leaping from desperate exchanges. Yet fentanyl's shadow would loom largest, its synthetic poison behind over 70% of overdoses, carving quiet graves beneath tattered tents. Paramedics would chase ghosts through overdose corridors, outrun by a surge no siren can catch. Sanitation collapses into chaos, the Los Angeles River clogged with waste. Huntington shores defiled by the debris of survival, paradise turned to warning. The air grows thick with barrel fire haze. Waterways poison both kin and creatures. Annual health costs could exceed $5 billion, a burden passed to generations unborn. When did the architects of progress, those valley pioneers, allow innovation to spawn such ruin, turning creation's gift into its curse? Politically, the gathering storm would summon reckonings long postponed, where compassion and control stand on fragile ground. Protests would rise from cracked pavement to Sacramento's doors, the silence demanding the dignity long denied, their cries a lament for reform deferred. Leaders, tangled in bureaucracy's web, would falter as ACLU challenges clash with city decrees skirting the line of justice. The wealthy would drift north to Oregon's refuge or east to Nevada's calm, draining the state of both revenue and resolve, leaving behind a hollow shell of its strength. Power would sway, reformers toppled beneath the suffering masses, alliances crumbling under unhealed wounds. Yet within this crucible, sparks endure: zoning reform, emergency relief, and the will to rebuild if seized with courage. Will we use this furnace to forge equity anew, or let it cool into nothing but the ashes of remorse? Four, paths to redemption, sparks of hope amid the crisis. Confronted with California's homelessness emergency, there remain paths toward redemption, and though the climb is steep, it is by no means unreachable. The state holds real potential for change, with some solutions already yielding results and others drawn from successful global models. Core approaches such as the Housing First strategy bring hope by defining housing as a fundamental right, not something to be earned. This model has proven effective in places like Salt Lake City and Houston, cutting homelessness recurrence rates by 50%. Housing First links stable housing with wraparound support, mental health care, addiction recovery, and counseling, addressing root causes rather than merely clearing the streets. California's Proposition 1, passed by voters, dedicates $6.4 billion toward housing efforts, including modular construction for quick deployment. These compact homes, built on unused lots, provide reliable shelter for people emerging from homelessness. The initiative not only creates physical stability, but also nurtures long-term recovery by integrating mental health treatment and opioid recovery services. Such frameworks embody a humane, holistic approach to homelessness, meeting both emotional and material needs simultaneously. The state also turns to global precedents for further guidance. Helsinki's bold experiment, offering universal housing vouchers, reduced homelessness by 80%, proving that political will drives real change. This type of policy reform, combined with solid infrastructure, has yielded remarkable results in nations where homelessness once seemed impossible to overcome. Closer to home, Los Angeles' Project Roomkey demonstrated its worth during the COVID-19 crisis by transforming hotels into emergency housing. This model gave thousands safe refuge, serving as a temporary yet essential lifeline. Expanding this idea could bring immediate support to communities struggling with growing encampments and displacement. Beyond government programs, cultural transformation is essential for lasting progress. Society must shift from viewing the homeless as burdens to acknowledging their dignity and potential. Efforts like organizing voters to back affordable housing, channeling corporate philanthropy into home building, and weaving empathy into education can cultivate a caring culture. These actions can foster collective ownership, treating homelessness not as a distant concern, but as a shared civic duty. In documentaries following individuals' journeys from the streets to stability, we see the strength of human will. These accounts are not stories of fate, but of transformation, sparked by empathy, community aid, and empowering policies. With the right mix of resources, compassion, and persistence, California can reshape its story from despair to renewal. Five, personal perspective. In the stillness of reflection, I think not of statistics but of faces, lives marked by struggle, that I've seen in countless documentaries on homelessness. Having wandered through the misty streets of San Francisco in my younger days, witnessing the first hints of this unfolding crisis, I can't escape a lingering unease. Those of us living in comfort are, in some way, contributors to the system that sustains it. My own path, from modest roots in the Midwest to where I stand today, was shaped by opportunities many never receive. A scholarship, a career break, a moment of fortune. Privilege has shielded me from the brink, yet with that privilege comes an obligation I can no longer deny. This crisis is not an abstract notion. It's the direct consequence of choices we've all made. We've permitted zoning codes to prioritize sprawling estates over affordable homes, and policies that uplift Silicon Valley's fortunes instead of its people's welfare. I recall the veterans I've met, heroes trapped in bureaucratic mazes, and the artists whose aspirations collapsed under crushing rents. These are not random tales. They mirror a deeper social breakdown. If California fails to respond, it's not merely a regional tragedy. It questions the very essence of our national ideals: unity, fairness, and justice. My counsel, drawn from years of lived experience, is clear. Get involved in your neighborhood, challenge those in power, and fill the gaps where policy falls silent. By confronting this crisis, we not only rebuild our cities, but also renew the conscience of our democracy. It's time we understand that real power resides in raising up those who have fallen the furthest. This is not the fading of hope, but the dawn of movement, a summons to turn empathy into action and let it guide the way forward. 6. Echoes into action. As we close this discussion, one truth stands out. California stands at a turning point, and the future is ours to define. The images we've uncovered, from the harsh realities to the glimmers of hope, deliver a single message: transformation relies on every one of us. Will we watch California fall apart from neglect, or will we join together to build a future rooted in fairness and empathy? The choice is in our grasp. Now, I invite you to take part in this dialogue. Which solution resonates with you the most? What direction do you believe is essential for progress? Your input matters. Like, comment, and share your views. Your voice carries the potential to ignite the change we so desperately seek. This discussion must continue. Subscribe to our channel for more insights on the homeless in America crisis and help elevate these crucial voices. Each share, each comment moves us closer to transforming the story and building real change. Together, we can make a genuine impact. Let's take action now, before the darkness of this crisis becomes impossible to escape. The moment to rise is here.